On today's show, the Minnesota Timberwolves get a big win against the New Orleans Pelicans, securing the 8th seed in the Western Conference. But at what cost? Jaden McDaniels punches a wall and fractures his hand and will be out the rest of the season. Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson getting into it on the sideline. Rudy Gobert being sent home at halftime and may not even play in the play-in game against the LA Lakers Tuesday night. Anthony Edwards stepped up in a really big way to secure this win for the T-Wolves. We're going to break it all down for you coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Next game, how about Karl Anthony Towns to score more than 26.5 points? What about LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds? How about Kevin Durant to have less than 6.5 assists? Or maybe even Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 three-pointers made? So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you covered for all the action over at Prize Picks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Wolves, Ben Beecken, who you can follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Wolves. And Ben, the Timberwolves, we'll start with the positive here. They're locked into the 8th seed. They got a big-time win against the New Orleans Pelicans. They're set to face off against the LA Lakers in the first leg of the NBA play-in tournament. But it was a grueling affair to get there with multiple Timberwolves players. You have Jaden McDaniels in frustration, punches a wall apparently, and might be out for the rest of the season. You have Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson getting into it on the sidelines of this game, final game of the season. Where do we even start with this? What is going on with the T-Wolves?
I mean, there's never a dull moment with the Timberwolves. Trust me. The really, like, the way I would best describe it is that this game was, for better or for worse, and mostly for worse, this was a microcosm of the season. Just a complete roller coaster. The Wolves come out flat. They play, really poorly. Ants 2 of 10 in the first half, has 6 points at halftime. Jaden McDaniels, Karl Anthony Towns are in foul trouble. Then, as you alluded to, McDaniels punches a wall, apparently in frustration after picking up a second foul. And then it's reported after the game he's got a fractured hand. You get Kyle Anderson and Rudy Gobert going at it on the sideline. And then apparently at halftime as well, where it escalated further, there's multiple national stories out there citing different things that were said in the locker room. And the Wolves actually sent Rudy Gobert home, which I can't think of the last time that a team did that. And it's not like some bench player. He's your starting center. He's a max contract guy, an all NBA player. You just send him home during the biggest game of the season because of behavior. It's really, and then in the second half, of course, the plus side that you alluded to, the Wolves end up winning. We could get into that here in a minute, but lots of pluses from the second half. But now you're looking at certainly no Jaden McDaniels for the near future, perhaps throughout the playoffs, possibly no Rudy Gobert in the play-in game on Tuesday against the Lakers. We don't know what kind of discipline might be coming down from the Wolves. Certainly a roller coaster Sunday afternoon.
And I feel like there's almost 2 ways you could look at this, Ben, right? Where there's, maybe you look at it through the lens of, what you wouldn't want to see is you wouldn't want to see this team be complacent, right? You wouldn't want to see them hanging their heads and no fire, no drive to want to win. So in a way, the frustration can be good when it's directed properly, but it seems like this was just all out of control chaos with just, the way that they were kind of responding there in that first half specifically.
Yeah. And like, as far as we're aware, there's no real history between Kyle Anderson and Rudy Gobert. I was actually watching the Pelicans broadcast and they were talking about, well, it doesn't just start out of nowhere. There's got to be I don't know that there really is any notable issues. And everybody after the game said all the right things in terms of hey, we're men. We got to move, Mike Conley, Kyle Anderson all said we'll move past this. We're all adults. Rudy's already apologized, the whole thing. And in this game, like the Wolves actually responded to adversity and came out strong in the third quarter, played well to finish the game. Towns and Ant both had moments in the second half. Bench guys stepped up in the absence of McDaniels and Gobert. And at least for this game, for this moment, they responded positively to this adversity. And that's not something we've seen consistently this season from the Wolves, but certainly more of late. And perhaps that bodes well on Tuesday, at least against the Lakers. I don't know what that means if you get past the play-in and, you're facing Memphis in the first round of the playoffs again, what that looks like. But perhaps they can channel that frustration and that tension into a good performance on Tuesday.
As it stands, we don't know whether or not we're going to see Rudy Gobert in that game Tuesday night against the LA Lakers. Do you think, how would you like to see the team handle this? Do you think it's worth this type of altercation is worth saying, you know what, we know this game is important, but we've got to stick to our principles. You did something wrong. We got to suspend you for a game. Or would you like to see him actually out there competing so that the Timberwolves are at their best?
It's tough. I mean, like, I think it really depends on how, like, apparently things did not de-escalate in the locker room. They got worse. And then he was sent home by the front office and apparently then texted the team group chat after Rudy Gobert did. And then he sent out a tweet apologizing to the fans and the organization and his teammates. So at least through text and Twitter, he's saying all the right things. We'll see if I'm sure there's some sort of face-to-face on Monday before the team leaves for Los Angeles. And if that's all handled correctly, I think, yeah, you got to have him on the floor for this game. I know if you lose, you play again later in the week to get the 8 seed, but for all practical purposes, this is really a win or go home type game. And also from a basketball perspective, Naz Reid's out with a fractured wrist. So you don't have your backup center. You're down to, Nate Knight and Luka Garza are both good players, decent fringe rotation guys, but you don't really want them backing up Karl-Anthony Towns in this magnitude of a game. You want to have both Rudy and Towns on the floor. So I think if he's saying the right things and if they're truly going to live up to the, like, hey, we're adults, we can get past this, we can learn from it and move on, then you gotta have him on the floor Tuesday. I think they sent a message by sending him home. Like I said earlier, I don't know if there's much precedent for that, at least in recent memory. So, it feels like they sent the message that way. Hopefully he's on the floor Tuesday.
Now, back to some of the positives, at least from the second half of this game, after things seemed to kind of calm back down a little bit in the way that the Timberwolves responded. Anthony Edwards really turned it on in the second half of this game. He wound up finishing with 26 points, 13 boards, 4 steals, 4 blocks, and Chris Finch was incredibly complimentary of his defense down the stretch in this game.
Yeah, and Jaden McDaniels is going to make a run for an all-defensive team nomination this year, and he played 9 minutes before leaving with first foul trouble and then with the fractured hand. And Anthony Edwards was, for the most part, the primary defender on Brandon Ingram down the stretch. Nickeil Alexander-Walker got some run there. You saw a little bit of Kyle Anderson, a little bit of Taurean Prince. But down the stretch, it was Ant who, like, Ingram had a great game. I mean, look at the box score, had 42 points, shot greater than 50% from the floor, like, no doubt, had a great game. But down the stretch, Ant blocked him a couple different times. He had a play where he reached across Brandon Ingram's body, stripped the ball, went down in transition, ended up scoring on an and one putback. And it was just an incredible series of events that happened there. And that's just the example of the brilliance of Anthony Edwards. Now, he also had 8 turnovers in this game, the 8th of which was up 3 with about 20 seconds left. He just stepped out of bounds when he was being trapped. Just a completely careless turnover. And he started the game 2 for 10. So we saw the good and the bad. But when the chips are down, Anthony Edwards is that guy that you want with the ball in his hands and also guarding the other team's best perimeter player, best ball handler, whoever that might be, best scorer. And certainly not having Jaden McDaniels against a team like the Lakers is going to really hurt. Certainly against a team like Memphis, potentially in the first round, that'll hurt. One of the advantages the Wolves had is they had 2 guys who could be lockdown perimeter defenders in Edwards and McDaniels. A lot of people don't realize this. Edwards is a legit plus defender on the ball when he's on. And when it's the playoffs, I think he's always going to be on because it's those games against, the Spurs on Saturday. He was not good defensively, but he knew they had to win Sunday. He locked in. He was great on that end of the floor. And he also contributed offensively, had a strong stretch in the second half as well. So Ant obviously is going to be huge against the Lakers on Tuesday, but he's a true 2-way player.
And this Lakers matchup on Tuesday, Ben, we don't know what's going to happen with Rudy Gobert, but when you're looking at these two teams, how do the T-Wolves kind of match up with this Lakers team and going up against none other than their former point guard, D'Angelo Russell himself?
Yeah, there's a lot of storylines here. There's the D'Lo. There's also Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. And Patrick Beverley was on this Lakers team earlier this year too. So there's a lot of shades of the Wolves team that was in the playoffs 12 months ago. like the Wolves beat the Lakers 2 out of 3 times this year. A couple of those were earlier. One was like, I think November, one was December. So before the Lakers kind of remade their roster on the fly, and they lost to them most recently, just a little over a week ago in a big game. The Lakers won by double digits in that game. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of storylines here. I actually don't hate how they match up. I liked it a lot more when Jaden McDaniels was available for the Wolves, but with no Jaden McDaniels, it makes me a little nervous how they can contain on the perimeter, whether that's D'Lo, certainly LeBron. And, you know, the other thing is Gobert struggles with Anthony Davis. I mean, pretty much everyone does, but like the last time the Wolves played the Lakers, Gobert struggled with Anthony Davis, but still you need bodies to throw at AD. And, you know, I don't know what this is going to look like exactly on Tuesday, but you need perimeter defenders. You need bodies to throw at AD. I know McDaniels, no Gobert changes the dynamic quite a bit. Otherwise, I don't hate the matchup. I feel like the Wolves can score on the Lakers. I feel like for the most part, they can contain D'Angelo Russell unless he goes complete, you know, revenge mode D'Lo throughout the game on Tuesday. But it's an okay matchup. I like it a lot more if McDaniels and Gobert are on the floor, though.
Will Rudy Gobert be available for the game against the LA Lakers? How will the Timberwolves decide to handle this, and will they be able to make it out of this first leg of the play-in tournament? Of course, you'll just cover all of that and more over at Locked On Wolves. Ben, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks for having me.